Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Unparalleled Universe. I hope everybody had a wonderful New Year's Day and a very safe and happy New Year's Eve, and I hope that you guys are ready to talk about some action figures, because today we're breaking down my top 10 Marvel Legends of 2019. And before we get into it, I just want to say something real quick. Some of the figures on this list have a couple of modifications or things added and, you know, kind of customized little details, and even though those things enhanced how much I like the figures, it didn't really affect the placement of those figures on this list. Every figure on this list would have been here with or without those modifications, but I just wanted to throw that out there before we get started. But enough of that, let's go ahead and get into it, starting with the number 10. And at the number 10 spot, we have Hercules from the Avengers Endgame Armored Thanos Build-A-Figure wave, and it's so nice to finally have a good Hercules figure. Hasbro did one back in the day when they first got the Marvel license, but it wasn't very good. They definitely made up for it with this guy, and yeah, this thing is just very well done. It's a whole new body. It's not, there's no reused parts here, or none that I could tell. Maybe the fist or something are reused, but for the most part, it's a brand new body. It's very well sculpted. It looks really good. It's a perfect build for Hercules. And the only thing I wish they would do was give us a classic version of Hercules on this same body, because even though this design is nice and everything, I just prefer the classic look for Hercules, and hopefully one day they'll do that. But for now, we have this one, and it's a really nice figure. And coming in at the number 9 spot, we have Magneto from the Family Matters 3-pack, and this is a very nice figure, and it's just so nice to finally have a good classic Magneto. And to be honest with you, I'm probably going to say that 100 times during this video, that it's so nice to finally have such and such, because Hasbro just went through and hit so many important characters, and it's just nice to finally have really good versions of all these characters, including Magneto. But yeah, this thing is awesome. It uses a very good base body. I think it's the same base body as the Walmart exclusive Black Panther and Spider UK, Prowler, all kinds of guys at this point, but it works really good for Magneto. It's a good build, has good articulation, and it just looks nice. And even though plastic capes kind of suck, this one does look cool. It has a good form and shape to it, and he just looks really cool just standing there hanging out with either, you know, fighting the X-Men or along with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, at least the ones we have so far. We still need a new Blob, a Toad, Pyro, Avalanche, classic style. We need all those figures to go along with this Magneto. And coming in at the number 8 spot, we have Silver Samurai from the X-Men Retro Wave, and this is a beautiful looking figure. Hasbro and Gentle Giant went all out on the sculpt, and they did an incredible job, and this figure just looks awesome. I love the sculpting work. I love the shelf presence. The articulation is really nice on this figure too. There's a lot to like about this figure, and one thing that kind of blows my mind about this guy is the fact that there's not a lot of reuse potential here. A lot of times Hasbro makes figures with reuse potential. Us as fans could look at a figure and know what they could use it for. A lot of times, like, our predictions are correct, you know. But in this case, there's nothing that could be really reused. Everything on here is pretty specific to Silver Samurai, with the exception of maybe the arms and the legs. But for the important stuff, it's specific to this guy, who's not a very well-known character. Obviously, X-Men nerds know who he is, and Wolverine nerds know who he is and love him and all that good stuff. But the average person walking around is not going to know who Silver Samurai is. Even though he's been in a movie, he's just not well known. So I gotta salute Hasbro for going all out on a character that not a lot of people know, and just doing an incredible job. I love this figure, man. And coming in at number 7, we have the 80th anniversary Thor, and obviously this is not how this figure came right out of the box. Originally he had a plastic cape, but this guy's been enhanced a little bit by an awesome soft goods cape from Harker Customs on Instagram. I'll leave a link in the description below so you can check him out, because that dude is awesome. He has some incredible work on his page. But even without this cape, this guy was incredible. I love the sculpting work on him. The articulation is awesome. It's a perfect looking classic Thor, whether you like, you know, the Jack Kirby Thor or the Walt Simonson era of Thor. This guy captures those two looks perfectly, and this is such a good body for Thor. It has like a good build. He's tall. He looks good next to other Avengers, and I just hope they go ahead and use this same body on a Better Ray Bill figure, or like a classic version of Better Ray Bill. But yeah, this is such a good figure. I'm so happy with this guy. There is a couple of things that I dislike about it, and nothing too crazy, but mine has like really loose joints, or not crazy loose, but he has some trouble standing sometimes. Like his ankles feel a little weak, maybe because there's so much going on the figure itself. And another thing, it was really hard for me to find one that didn't have like really bad paint imperfections on the chest pieces. But aside from that, it's a perfect looking Thor, and I'll be honest with you, unless it's like a different company like Mezco or Mafex, I don't need another Thor figure. I think this is like as good as a Thor Marvel Legends figure could get. I think Mezco would make an incredible Thor. Hopefully they do that one day. But as far as Marvel Legends goes, I think this one cannot be topped. And coming in at number 6, we have the 80th anniversary Iron Man. And this is such a good looking Iron Man figure. I honestly can't believe Hasbro made an Iron Man figure this good, because to be honest with you, I usually don't like Hasbro Iron Man figures, and part of the reason is because there's so many other companies that make incredible Iron Man figures. The Hasbro ones kind of come off as cheap sometimes, but that's not the case with this guy. I think this is a perfect looking classic Iron Man figure. And another thing I love about it, aside from the figure itself, is the awesome unmasked Tony Stark head sculpt that he comes with. I don't think any company out there could give us a better head sculpt than this here. This is such a perfect classic looking Tony Stark. There we go. It looks absolutely perfect on here, and this is just such a satisfying figure. And coming in at number 5, we have the Hulk from the Hulk vs. Wolverine 80th anniversary 2-pack. And look at this thing, man. He's beautiful. This is such a nice figure. I love the sculpting work on him. He doesn't come with that many accessories, but he comes with what he needs, you know, multiple hands, so I'm happy with that. And then this awesome torn up shirt that adds a lot to the figure. I think that looks incredible on the shelf. This thing has such a nice presence. Look how big he is, man. This is such a huge, awesome Hulk figure. And they put it in a 2-pack. This could have been a Build-A-Figure, but luckily they made it so we could just go buy it without having to buy a bunch of figures we don't want. And I even like the first appearance Wolverine that came with them. But yeah, this thing is awesome, man. He has really good articulation for such a big figure. He does have some limitations. You know, as you probably already know, the shoulders are a little bit limited going forward, but going back, they work really well. And then you can crunch them forward. You can do all kinds of really nice stuff with this figure. And I always just like to throw the shirt on because that just looks awesome. And I'm not sure which one of these two versions I like more. That's why I have them both here. It's really just a matter of choice. I love the gray Hulk, but you know, it's hard to beat the classic. Either way, I mean, they're basically the same figure other than the head sculpt. But yeah, I can't believe like what a good job Hasbro has done with the Hulk figure, because they've made some really bad Hulk figures in the past, but they've definitely made up for it with these two. And coming in at number 4, we have another near perfect version of a beloved character that we've needed a remake of for a very long time, and that would be Nightcrawler. I love the fact that they included 3 different heads so that we could convey 3 different versions of Nightcrawler. I love the sword that he comes with. I like that he came with an extra hand for when he's not holding the sword, so you don't have the awkward gripping hand all the time. And this body is awesome too. It has really great articulation. I can't wait to see what else they do with it. I really hope that they give us more versions of Nightcrawler. I would love an X-Force version, or even that pirate version from the 90s. I think that would be dope. I'd be down for any version of Nightcrawler on this. And like I said, the 3 different heads add a lot to this figure, so that was really cool that they included that many accessories. The one thing that a lot of people dislike about this figure is the fact that he doesn't have a bendy wire in the tail. I don't really mind that. I'm a little more concerned with the fact that the tail is so loose. That's one thing I don't like about this figure. But other than that, he pretty much doesn't have any flaws at all. Oh, he does have some paint imperfections. That was kind of a common thing with this figure, but you know, that kind of happens sometimes. But as far as the figure itself, it's very well done. And you know, I'm a big Nightcrawler fan. Everybody loves Nightcrawler. He's awesome. He's one of the coolest X-Men, and this figure captures the look and feel of Nightcrawler perfectly. And before we get into the top 3, let's talk about a bunch of figures that almost made it into the top 10 but just couldn't cut it. And it's not because they're not great figures, it's just because there's so much good stuff this year. But let me go ahead and try to run through a bunch of these real quick. So first off, they couldn't even fit in the frame here, but I really like this Captain America Peggy Carter 2-pack, which was an Amazon exclusive, I believe. But these 2 figures were really, really cool. It surprised me how much I like this Captain America. I think this thing was awesome. And I opened this figure up before I even took Peggy Carter out. I had this figure out and I was really, really enjoying it. And I just figured like this Peggy Carter figure was going to be like whatever, but it turned out to be one of the best MCU female figures that they've done so far. So this was a really cool set. And moving on here, the Love Triangle 3-pack was an awesome set as well. Only reason this Wolverine didn't make it into the top 10 is only because he's pretty much a re-release of a figure that we got last year. It's one of my favorite Marvel Legends figures. And then these guys are awesome too. Jean Grey is great. Cyclops is great. All really good upgrades from the previous versions. And on to Scarlet Witch here. This Scarlet Witch probably has the best female head sculpt that we've ever seen. I mean, only thing I don't like about Hasbro females, obviously, is the arms. I know a lot of people have that problem with them, and they just need to do something a little bit better. As you could tell, there's a lot of females in the runner-up category here, and I mean, I just couldn't put any of them in my top 10 because the arms just pissed me off so much. But, you know, aside from that, this is a really great figure, a really nice version of a classic Scarlet Witch, and man, this head sculpt is just incredible. So they did a good job. And then here we have Mr. Sinister, And holy crap, this thing is badass. He's definitely like top 10 potential, but there was just 10 other figures that I liked more. I couldn't squeeze them in there. It's a welcome upgrade from the Toy Biz version. A lot of people like that Toy Biz version. I never liked it. I never thought it was a good figure. I never thought that it really captured the feel of Mr. Sinister, but my Mr. Sinister was mostly from the animated series. Like, that's the main version I think about when I think about him, and I think this one captures that perfectly. So moving on here, Storm. Storm was a really nice figure too, but again, you know, the arms are kind of goofy. But aside from that, really good stuff here. I'm so happy to finally have a nice classic version of Storm in her white suit. Really, really good. And Jubilee is really nice too. They've released a Jubilee in the past, but it was like a weird vampire version, so I'm glad they came along and gave us this classic version. And then we have Havoc and Polaris. This was a really cool set too. I really like Havoc. He was one of my favorite toys back in the day, in the Toy Biz 5-inch days. They had a really cool Havoc with his hands spread out. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was a cool figure, and this guy reminds me of it. And, you know, of course he has to come with Polaris, and this is a really nice figure as well. Let's see, almost done here. Then we have Better Ray Bill, and Better Ray Bill would have definitely been in my top 10 if it was in the classic uniform. I'm not, you know, this uniform's okay and everything. I mean, this costume is cool, but I'm a fan of the classic Better Ray Bill, and that guy might have made my like top 2, because I love classic Better Ray Bill, and we definitely need to update. The Toy Biz one is great, but we need to update. But anyways, this figure is nice, and he has been upgraded with the Harker Customs cape, but even without that, it was a really nice figure. And then next up we have Colossus. Definitely top 10 potential, but you know, there was just 10 figures that I liked more. What can I say? And I do plan on doing a comparison video with this one and the select version, but it's just been busy lately, so I haven't been able to get to it. But I plan on doing that, and I think this guy has a good chance of topping that one. And I really love that Marvel Select Colossus figure, so that's going to be a cool video. But yeah, this is a really nice figure. Hasbro definitely killed it with this guy. And then we have Professor X, and Professor X is like, this is like a childhood dream come true right here. I've always wanted a good Professor X in a hover chair. I never thought we'd see it from Marvel Legends, especially after getting the one from Toy Biz, which had that weird like old school. I mean, it wasn't weird. It was like an old school wheelchair that Professor X used to have like before the 90s. So this was like his 90s hovercraft thing, and I think this is awesome. This is my version of Professor X, obviously, but yeah, it was really nice to have this guy. And then last but not least, and I saved Gambit for last because Gambit was he was my favorite character growing up. You know, I've always liked the series 4, was it, Gambit from Toy Biz. That guy, that was a really good figure, and he you know, held his place in my collection for all these years. So I was really happy to finally get an upgraded Gambit that'll fit in better with the Hasbro stuff. But the only reason he didn't make it into the top 10 is because they just use the same jacket that we've seen over and over, and it works for Gambit. But you know, being that he was like my favorite character, I wanted something more unique, and I need to do like a soft goods upgrade here. Even with this jacket that we've seen a bunch of times, I think they did a good job with it, and I like that they gave him arms that are a little bit better than what we've seen on this body in the past. So I mean, that's good, but I really wish they gave him a more unique jacket. But aside from the jacket, this is a damn good figure. It has a new body, it has really good articulation. I like the head sculpt. I know a lot of people don't like the hair, but I'm fine with it. It's good for action poses, and yeah, this is a really good figure, and I like this guy a lot. I just wish I could have put him in my top 10 because, like I said, he was my favorite character growing up. And as for my favorite Build-A-Figure of 2019, there was 2 figures that I was torn between, and both of these guys are characters that I feel like I needed for my collection, and I'm really happy to have both of them. And the figures are Caliban and Kingpin, and both of these figures are very well done. I know a lot of people don't like this Caliban Build-A-Figure, but for me, it just takes me back to my childhood, to be honest with you, because back in the day, I had that 5-inch Caliban figure, and I didn't know anything about the character at the time, but I really, really loved that figure. It was one of my favorite Toy Biz Marvel figures, and it was the one where you squeeze the legs and his mouth opens and his arms fly up and stuff. And you know, it wasn't the best figure, but for whatever reason, I loved that figure as a kid. It was always the character that I wanted to be when we were playing, you know, X-Men and all that good stuff. And you know, so this Build-A-Figure just makes me kind of like relive that, and it's just a very well done figure. I really love the body on it. The articulation is nice. The screaming head is awesome. I love the fact that they did the hands and the head like a different color and texture than the rest of the body. It really adds a lot to the figure and makes it feel like it's a dude wearing a skin tight suit, you know. One thing that might have made it so that this guy could top Kingpin for me would have been if he would have had sculpted boots and you know, maybe like a little bit more costume detail. I'm not too sure what they could have done. They did give him the sculpted bracelet wrist gauntlet things. I think it would have been awesome if he had the sculpted boots and then maybe like a cloak like that old 5-inch figure. Oh man, that would have been awesome. If that was the case, I'm sure he would have been the best Build-A-Figure of 2019. But to be completely honest, there's no denying the greatness that is Kingpin. This thing, oh my god, they did such a great job on it, and it's the Kingpin that we've always needed. He's one of the biggest villains in the Spider-Man and Daredevil worlds, you know, so he's a character that we've desperately needed for a long time. I never liked the Toy Biz Face-Off 2-pack one. It looked too round and weird and awkward. This guy, it just does everything right that figure did wrong. I love the build on it, and just everything about it's cool. He doesn't have the most articulation, but I'm kind of okay with that because, you know, he's a big crazy dude. For the most part, you just need him to stand there looking threatening, you know, but you can still get some decent poses out of him. But yeah, this is a really nice figure. I love the fact that he came with 2 different heads. That's awesome stuff, and I can't wait to see what else they could do with this body. I know there's not too many options, but there's some things that they've already started to explore. They gave us a Shadow King head that came along with the Professor X figure, and I love that too because my favorite single issue of a comic book is the one where Professor X is fighting Shadow King in that bar, like inside of their heads or the astral plane or whatever. I don't know where it was at. I can't remember, but that was my favorite like single issue. That and the first appearance of Beta Ray Bill. Those two are probably my 2 favorite single issues of all time. So I'm really happy to have this Shadow King head. It would have been cool if they gave us like an accurate Farouk head. I think that would have been dope because it's not, I don't think he didn't look like this in the comic. He looked like a regular guy, and then when they went into the astral plane, he looked like, you know, he looked different. But just as a regular human, he just was a regular looking guy, but he was a big dude, and this Kingpin body works really good for it. But I wish we would have just got like a regular Farouk head. I think that would have been dope. But what they did here was really nice, and I'm happy to have a Shadow King figure. I never thought I'd say that. So good stuff. A perfect Kingpin. I love this Caliban, but I got to give him second place to Kingpin because Kingpin is just too perfect. And now for the most disappointing Marvel Legends figure of 2019, and it's by far the worst figure of the year, and it might be the worst Marvel Legends figure ever. I don't know. I'd have to think about that a little bit more, but off the head, I can't think of a figure that's worse than this one. And I'll be honest with you, it's almost embarrassing to own this figure, and it trips me out that in the same year that we got a perfect Nightcrawler, a perfect Hulk, a perfect Thor, perfect Iron Man, perfect Silver Samurai, we also got this monstrosity. Like, what were they thinking with this figure? I cannot believe that they released this with the Marvel Legends name on it. I mean, that's official right there. This is a Marvel Legends figure. When I saw this, like the little leaked image that came out, I honestly thought it was going to be one of those basic figures that, you know, they sell, maybe like a new Spider-Man line of basic figures. And that, I mean, for that, I mean, I would have been okay with. That would have been kind of cool. I don't think I would have bought it, but I could have saw like, you know, I would see why people would be into it, especially younger kids or whatever. But this thing is just as a Marvel Legend, it's complete garbage, and I can't believe that this thing was released. And it's unfortunate because there's a lot of potential for a really good action figure when you're thinking about Spider-Man with the 6 arms or Man Spider or all that. You know, Toy Biz did an amazing version of Man Spider, and I would love to see Hasbro do it, but after seeing this, I'm kind of scared because you never know how it's going to come out. In my opinion, they should have made this a Build-A-Figure, put some more money into it, engineered like a new torso that had some articulation. It didn't have to be an ab crunch, but you know, that type of torso that they now have on the Superior Octopus figure from the Demi-Goblin wave, I think that kind of articulation could have worked in here. They could have slipped that in there, and I don't think it would have interfered with the pegs. I don't know, but you know, they should have done something. They should have put a little bit more money into it and made it a better figure because it could have been really cool. Instead, we got this, and like I said, it's complete garbage. And no disrespect to anybody that likes it. I know some people do, and that's awesome for you. You should definitely enjoy the figures that you enjoy. So I'm happy that you could find find enjoyment in this figure, but I was very disappointed in this. Okay, so on to the top 3, and coming in at the number 3 spot, we have Dr. Doom, and this thing is just awesome. I cannot believe that Hasbro gave us such an incredible Doom figure with so many little details. They went all out with the sculpt on this thing. There's all kinds of straps and like chainmail pieces, and the felt parts look like actual felt even though it's plastic. This is some of the best like sculpted felt that I've ever seen on a Marvel Legends figure. They absolutely killed it. This figure is pretty much a perfect Doom, you know. My ideal Doom would have a bunch of soft goods, but you know, that's not what Hasbro does with Marvel Legends figures. So as far as a Marvel Legends figure, this is the perfect version of Doom, and I just can't think of any flaws, to be honest with you. It's a perfect Dr. Doom figure, so I'm really happy with this guy. And this figure has like import level articulation. He's got like this awesome torso that you could get some really good bend out of, but doesn't have like a torso joint that you could see. He gets all the movement from the waist. He has like the double jointed neck thing, like you know, like Mezco figures do. So that's cool, man. And this is just, it's a really nice figure, and I really hope that they give us I think they call it God Doom, where it's all white, and it's also like the Future Foundation of Doom, if I'm not mistaken. Hasbro did do a version of that in the past, and I can't believe this figure came from Hasbro, because they've given us Doom figures in the past and they weren't very good. The one from the Ronin wave was the one that I had in my collection for a long time, because I had to open it to build the Ronin Build-A-Figure. But if I didn't have to do that, I wouldn't have bought that figure. And I ended up with the Epic Heroes version, and it looked a little better because the cloth was a little bit darker. But to be honest with you, I didn't even open it. I just had it hanging on my wall for a while, and then I eventually sold it. And luckily, shortly after, they announced this guy. So yeah, I'm just happy with this thing. They did a really, really good job on it. And coming in at number 2, we have Dr. Hank McCoy, aka Beast. And I seriously cannot believe what a good job Hasbro did on this guy. Once again, just like Doom, the articulation is ridiculous and it's damn near import quality, but more so on Beast, because they put even more things that we tend to see on import figures and not so much on Marvel Legends in this guy. And they couldn't have dedicated that kind of stuff to a better character, because Beast needs to be able to have like that posability so you could get him into all kinds of good poses, and you definitely can with this figure. To be honest with you, there's zero flaws with the articulation. I'm happy with everything they did here. We have the butterfly shoulders, we have the double jointed torso with the ab crunch, and then the diaphragm joint, and that's the setup that they use on their Lightning Collection figures. And I know a lot of Legends collectors want to see that on Legends going forward, but they haven't really done it yet. They've been experimenting a little bit, kind of like that on that Superior Octopus and other figures, but they went all out with Beast. They weren't going to wait for experiments or anything like that. They're just going to throw it all in here. And what they did here, which was crazy, is the drop down hips. I don't think we've ever seen that on a Marvel Legends figure. The one criticism this figure seems to get a lot is about the head sculpt, and I personally think the head sculpt is pretty nice, but I think it was a mistake for them to only go with this look for Beast, because for most people, the iconic Beast in our minds is like the calm, poetry reciting, book reading Beast that is like lovable and nice and not like a savage beast. He can be a savage beast when it's time, you know, he could get down, but for the most part, he's a calm character, and I think it was a mistake not to include a head that conveyed that version of the character. And that's really what kept this figure from my number 1 spot. He could have been the number 1 spot if he had maybe an alternate head that, you know, was a more calm looking Beast. Like I said, I like this. I could appreciate that they were going for a specific comic book look and they gave us this head, but they should have known that most people want like a calm Beast. And honestly, it would be smart for them to release like an ultimate version of Beast in the future, maybe with like a lab coat, some glasses, some books, multiple heads, and a bunch of hands. I'd totally be down for that. Maybe with a different shade of blue too, maybe go a little bit darker. I think that'd be cool. But even though I'm fine with this shade, this is awesome and everything, but I think I would like to have a darker version as well. But yeah, I think an ultimate Beast would be the way to go. And for me, this figure would have been number 1 if he had a better head sculpt. And to be honest with you, I went ahead and bought the May Shelf head sculpt. Let me pop that on real quick. And I also have the shorts from Tiny Pants Tailoring. He hooked me up with those, and it looks really good on this figure, especially with this head sculpt. But look at that. That right there, I'll be honest with you, is probably my favorite Legend of 2019. This right here is so perfect. But at this point, it's basically a custom, so I can't really include that, you know. I know like it's not like I repainted the whole figure or anything, and I really didn't do much other than change the head sculpt and add the shorts. But you know, I didn't feel I couldn't put him at number one like this, even though I will say this is probably my favorite Marvel Legend this year. And there's a lot of different options out there for beast heads. A lot of people were making custom beast heads. Everybody fired up their 3D printers and they were offering, you know, alternate versions of beasts for you to throw onto your beast figure, and a lot of people did incredible stuff. But in my opinion, the May Shelf one is by far the best. I just think this thing is awesome. It's an incredible looking beast head. Everything about it is pretty much perfect. I know a lot of people like the more animated version look, and I love the animated Beast too. That's like one of my favorite versions of Beast. But this right here, it still captures like the comic book version of Beast, but it's still calm, and at the same time he still looks like a badass that'll knock you out, you know. So that's what Beast is to me. He's like the gentle giant, you know. So that's awesome stuff. But yeah, this is really nice, and if it would have came like this out of the box, it would have been number one for sure. But this is an incredible figure, and you know, hats off to Hasbro for giving us such a nice Marvel Legends Beast. Okay, so here we are at the number one spot, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with my pick, but I don't care, because my favorite Marvel Legends of 2019 has to be the 80th anniversary Alex Ross Captain America. And this figure just brings me so much joy, because it's the version of Captain America that I've always wanted. I mean, they've made a lot of Captain Americas over the years, and they always fall short. They're never good. The last good Captain America, in my opinion, was the face-off version from Toy Biz, and that was a long time ago. Hasbro has put out a bunch of Captain Americas, but they're just not good. You know, some of them are okay, but none of them come near this one, or even the face-off one. But even at this point, the face-off one is a far second to this one. I'm so happy with this guy. When they announced it at Comic-Con, I was so excited. It's one of the few figures that I pre-ordered right away because I wanted to ensure that I get it. I don't pre-order too much because I always want to try to get stuff like as soon as possible, you know. So I always try to wait to see who gets things first, and then I snatch them up. But for Captain America, I had to secure one, so I pre-ordered it. So I was so excited when they announced it. When I came home from Comic-Con, all I talked about was Captain America with sculpted chainmail. I kept trying to explain to my wife how excited I was, and I just told her like, but you know, babe, it's gonna have sculpted chainmail. You don't get it, man. It's gonna be perfect. It's awesome. And then when it came out, it did not disappoint, man. It's such a good figure. I guess I can't really think of anything like that I would consider a flaw. Some people say that the shield is too small. Okay, I'll give you that. And other than that, some people did experience some paint application issues, especially in the face. Luckily, I got two versions of this, and neither version had that problem. And you know, I'm fortunate for that. But yeah, you know, I just love this figure so much. I don't know what else to say, really. It's just a perfect Captain America. Yes, there's some things that could be different that could make it a little bit better. Like, of course, I think it would have been better if it had a diaphragm joint, only because I'm a fan of that joint. But what we have here still works out good. You know, you could still get them in awesome poses. You could do some great things with this figure. I think an unmasked Steve Rogers head would have been great. But again, there's options out there. I got a really nice looking one from Casting Cave, so that thing is super dope. And I think it's a shrunk down version of the 12-inch Captain America head, but it looks awesome on this body. He looks incredible next to the other Avengers figures, and just all three of these guys, man. We just have to salute Hasbro for what they did with the big three, and even with like Hulk and all them. But look at this, man. This is so ridiculous. I never thought I'd have such a perfect version of these three characters, and they just look so great together. So I think that's it. Thank you so much for hanging out. Be sure to let me know what your top 10 Marvel Legends figures are. Leave that in the comments. I have a feeling that most people's top 10s are going to look something like this, especially with characters like Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, you know, Hulk, Beast, Nightcrawler. I think a lot of those figures are going to pop up all over people's top 10s this year, and for good reason. They're amazing figures. And to be honest with you, I don't know what Hasbro can do next year to top what they did in 2019. I mean, they gave us so many good versions of iconic characters. What can they do in 2020? I look forward to it because they keep surprising us, and they're just killing it. I can't believe how far Hasbro has come, man. They used to suck back in the days. I remember like so before I was really into like all the stuff going on with toys, I just, you know, collected things casually, and I just always knew that Toy Biz was like the shit, you know, like they were the good company. I always trusted their product. And then when I was kind of like out of it and just buying figures here and there, that's when the whole transition from Toy Biz to Hasbro happened. And I remember walking through the store, and I used to always pick up Marvel figures, just look on the back, see the Toy Biz logo, and be like, oh yeah, Toy Biz. And then you know, when the Hasbro stuff came out, I remember walking through the aisle, and I think I saw maybe either the Hercules figure or the Zorn figure, and I was like, what is this? This looks like different, you know, this doesn't look like this can't be Toy Biz, you know? It's like, it's Marvel Legends, but what is it? Turned it around, it's Hasbro. I was like, oh, that's why it looks different. And, you know, that's kind of around the time when I got really back into it. And I just used to think like, man, I'm sure like most old school collectors, when Hasbro was doing their things, we all wanted the Toy Biz days back, you know? That was like a common thing. That's not the case anymore. Hasbro absolutely killed anything Toy Biz was doing, and that comes from a hardcore Toy Biz fan from back in the day. But you can't deny the greatness that they've given, especially this year. They've done incredible stuff for the last couple of years, but 2019 was like the pinnacle. I don't know what else they could do. Hopefully in 2020 they come along and surprise us and give us a bunch of other cool things. They killed it in 2019, and I salute them. Hats off to them. Can't wait to see what else they have in store. So that's it. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And if you want to support the channel, be sure to use the Amazon links in the description below for your Amazon shopping, or you could buy one of these awesome Odious heads. I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. Thank you so much. Peace.